accomplished accompanist is wondering if her bass and treble is balanced okay. I get thumbs up. So. Maybe. No, I'm ready. I'm looking for my sound guy, Jeremy, but I think we can figure it out. So, well, welcome to Greensky Hill Indian United Methodist Church as one of our biggest celebrations of our 190th anniversary is occurring right this minute. I think we'll have enough seats. We still have some seats up front, and we've got drum voices and other folks that will join us. If we need extra benches, they're on the porch, and some folks can grab those. I'm Reverend Jonathan Mays. I've been the pastor at Greensky Hill for the last 10 years, and I'm so incredibly grateful for that. If you've been here all week, you've been hearing me share my gratitude for this wonderful gift of an appointment. And I get to personally thank, in front of all the rest of you, the person who is responsible for my appointment and the assignment and then appointment of Greensky Hill's newest pastor. I'm retiring on the 31st of December, and I'm out of here. I'm staying in the community, but I'm going to leave this beautiful place. I'm going to pass the mantle to a young Anishinaabemowin pastor named Sarah Dominic Schaefer. Most of you know her. She's been connected here for a while and in our community and with the tribe for a long time. And I'm so incredibly grateful that the bishop and cabinet saw the wisdom of the Spirit's guidance that Sarah will be our next pastor. I have a few other announcements as we gather, and then I'm going to invite the bishop and our most recent district superintendent. You met our current district superintendent last night. They'll come for greetings, and then we'll have some prayer and continue in worship. I have a few extra copies of a Native American celebration of Holy Communion, in case the book near you does not have this in the front of it. I'm going to put these on the chair on the corner up here, along with our registration book for this morning. And we're going to need a few extra pages, and that's always delightful. Can you just take a moment before we do all the rest of the business of the day to breathe? Our keynote speaker, Kaitlin Curtice, has been guiding us in practices, and I know she will again this morning, to connect us, to help us be embodied again, and to connect to Mother Earth. But as we gather, will you just pause everything else in your mind and look up? See the trees breathing for us, breathing with us, dancing and singing with us as we gather. And as I often do, may I invite you to lay aside for just a few minutes, maybe an hour if you can, all of the cares that you brought into this place with you. Our loving Creator is present in all of those concerns, and you have nothing else to do right now but be present. What we are celebrating this morning is very hard for me to share in a few words, but I'm going to do my best so that we can enter into worship together. Well, we're already worshiping. We are gathered together, and whenever two or more of us gather, we know that the Creator is present. This place, 220-ish years ago, out in that field at the end of this little dirt road, a gathering of Ogamas from all over this region. Ogamas, we translated often as chief. It was more like family, the head of an extended family at that time. They gathered here, and they planted trees and put a bend in those trees so that the empire wouldn't come and take them for profit. And they planted those trees so that this place they already knew as a sacred space where it was okay to share your needs and concerns and even disagreements in peace. And so they each planted a tree, and our stories tell us there were 29 or 30 of those, depending on who's telling the story. And that those trees would be a marker for a peaceful, sacred space for 7 generations. One of them fell about 8 years ago, and MSU dated it at 204 years old. Mm. So they're 212, 220 or so years old. And sometime not long after that, a Chippewa translator named Peter Greensky came down from the Upper Peninsula to help another minister establish a church on Old Mission Peninsula. Peter Greensky came and very quickly established himself as a leader of communities, a lover of the two-leggeds in his circle, and a thriving church grew on Old Mission Peninsula. And then the locals decided to disinvite them. We don't know why. We're not sure what was going on, that they were asked to leave the peninsula, but they packed everything up in canoes. And if you know Grand Traverse Bay, Kaitlin just got to see Grand Traverse Bay for the first time when she flew in to the airport last week, Friday. And imagine like the big canoe that was out here the other day that Fred Harrington took folks from. Yeah, the G. I'm sorry. I was struggling to find the word, and I should have just asked. Gmon. For white folks, it's a giant canoe. It holds 18 adults. And so some similar vessels like that, Peter and his congregation packed up in those Gmons and brought, some folks believe, all the timber in that church behind you. For sure, all the windows and the door. Those are 175, 180 years old, our best guesses. And folks have been worshiping in that building ever since. Peter had a vision for a place that would always be protected, would always be a place of peace for all people, would always be a sacred space accessible to everyone. And our conference, the Michigan Conference of the United Methodist Church, listened to our Indian church and to all the other Indian churches. And that reality is more certain than it has ever been in a couple of ways. You remember, if you've been a part of Greensky for a while, that we had a listening circle about 8 years ago, several, where we asked, what does our community need from Greensky Hill? And by our community, we mean the 2 tribes that we serve, the Grand Traverse Band and the Little Traverse Bay Band, and the heritage Indians in our community, and all other people in our community, all other folks. We asked, what do they need from us? And then we asked, what do we need from them? And from listening and talking and passing the talking stick around that circle, we established 3 clear priorities that we've been living into. We've always been living into these in some form, but now we've made them more concise and easier to talk about. And if you ask any of our members or constituents, they will be able to tell you these 3 priorities. You're experiencing part of it right now. We are, and we will be a radically welcoming place for all people. The second is the greening of Greensky Hill. And if it's not too hard on your neck, turn and look at that Susan Hall roof. That's about to be entirely reshingled, and then 2 solar panels array on this side of the roof and 2 on the other side of the roof are about to happen. That's part of a large energy grant Greensky Hill secured to electrify everything, get us off propane gas, and stop adding carbon to our Mother Earth. We will be able to generate more energy than we use and give it back. We'll be able to give clean energy back to the grid. And for the first time ever, and we really noticed it this week, not only will we have wonderful, comfortable heat in both buildings, but we will be able to air condition when we need to. So those little comforts are wonderful, but mostly our folks wanted to practice everything we can. So the new community garden that's in the corner opposite, where I'm pointing that direction, It's not only available for folks and about to be planted, but it's an accessible community garden where our wheelchair friends can get in and out comfortably and participate in growing that garden as part of our radically welcoming commitment. Lots of other things are happening with the greening of Greensky Hill, but the one that we're especially celebrating this morning is our third priority, and that is to be an Anishinaabe cultural center in addition to a living Christian United Methodist Church. And everything that's been going on in the denomination for all of these years, ever since Peter Greensky affiliated with the then Methodist Episcopal denomination and all of its iterations since, our folks have said, we want to be United Methodists. We want to stay in that connection. And we had a qualifier, as long as our connection is radically welcoming to everyone. Bishop David Allen Bard, District Superintendent Jody Flessner, our new District Superintendent Scott Harmon that we were able to hear from last night, have all been instrumental advocates and movers of what needs to be moved because the conference listened. She's standing back. You'll see her drumming in a moment, and she doesn't like me to draw attention to her, but I have to honor our elder Judy Johnson, who sat across the table from Jerry Devine as Jerry asked on behalf of the conference to all of our Indian churches, what will be meaningful acts of reconciliation or conciliation or healing? What do we need to do? What we want to hear directly from our native folks, our indigenous folks. And Jerry was offering beautiful language for a formal public apology on behalf of the harm that the Christian Church and the Methodist Church has done in complicity with the empire to harm Native people. And we all listened, and as I recall, Jerry was watching Judy's face across the table, and at some point he said, Judy, do you have something to share? And she said, well, Jerry, you'll have to forgive us if words don't mean very much to us sometimes. We have a history of folks saying beautiful words and making commitments to us that were never followed through on. And so, yes, I'm listening. And Jerry had the beautiful wisdom and integrity to look at her and say, what would be meaningful? And Judy had, I don't know what the Ojibwe word is for chutzpah, but Judy said, give us our land back. And ever since that time, the conference has tried to find a way to do the impossible. How is it possible that a church that wants to maintain the connection with the United Methodist Church can have the trust clause released? The conference, the cabinet, the bishop, and all the district superintendents worked on this for years. And at some point, about a year and a half ago, I think, Jody called me and said, Jonathan, you're creating an Anishinaabe Cultural Center as part of your priorities, ministry priorities at Greensky Hill. Are you establishing a new nonprofit? And I said, why, yes, we are. And she said, we found a path for the church to have its land back, and we think it can be a model for the other congregations who each have their own unique situation and desires for what happens with the land. But we want to work with Greensky Hill to make that happen. It's been way more work than we imagined, but last week we filed with the state of Michigan our new nonprofit, the Greensky Hill Anishinaabe Conservancy, that has as its articles of purpose to its articles of incorporation, the purposes include to preserve and protect this land in, we would say, in perpetuity for 7 generations, as long as the rivers flow, specifically to protect and preserve the ongoing historic ministry of Greensky Hill Indian United Methodist Church. And so this new nonprofit will be making all of this available as it has been for us for as long as the congregation desires to continue worshiping. And it has as its mission to be a healing place for all people and a safe sacred space for all people. So that is registered with the state of Michigan, and that now will allow us, we're calling our first meeting of that new board, which the acting board happens to be the same 9 trustees of the church, and that's all above board and proper. It's in good order. And when that body meets 2 weeks from today for our second Sunday council meeting, the new nonprofit will also call to order its first meeting and vote to formally accept the articles and bylaws, which elaborate how we're going to be in connection and our partnership with not only the Methodist denomination, United Methodist denomination, but our ongoing co-ministry as a Anishinaabe Cultural Center, Conservancy, and a church. So I don't know what to ask for in terms of praise and gratitude, however you wish to express that. But as I invite Bishop David Allen Bard to come, can we share our gratitude for his leadership? I'll then invite Jody, so we'll honor both of them as Bishop comes. And for our elders, our Anishinaabemowin, who waited for decades. I've only been waiting for 10 years. Our folks have been waiting for more than a century for this to happen, and we are so grateful. Thank you, Bishop. Please come.
I'm very humbled and honored to be here with you today. And Jonathan, those words were tremendously kind. And thank you for reading all the legalese so I don't have to. But it is my great privilege to be with you today to celebrate your 190 years in ministry and also celebrate moving forward in ministry together. I'd like to read from Philippians, the first chapter, and I'm reading from the First Nations version. Whenever you come into my thoughts, I give thanks to my Creator. I always pray with a glad heart when I send up prayers for you, because from the first day until now, we have walked side by side in the telling of the good story. I have no doubts that the one who set your feet on this good path will keep walking it with you until the day that Creator sets free, the chosen one appears. It is right for me to think of you in this way, for you hold a warm place in my heart. Indeed, friends, you hold a warm place in my heart. Just being in this space, I feel some of the history that Jonathan shared. It is a very sacred space. I couldn't help but notice as Jonathan was inviting us to look up, and even though I was kind of looking up into the sun, and so I had to be a little careful, there was a beautiful big bird flying. And I'm really not very good at telling what kind of bird it was, and I couldn't see very well because of the trees and the leaves. A hawk or an eagle of some kind, but it was a wonderful image of the way God's Spirit simply encircles us today, and the way God's Spirit has encircled this community for years and years and years. Those who have named the name of Jesus of European descent have not always made it easy for those of non-European descent to walk this way, to walk this good path. And words are insufficient, but I am sorry for that. And that makes me even more grateful to you for your willingness, in spite of all the barriers people have put in your way, to walk this good path with us together. That we are walking this good path together is its own kind of miracle, some kind of work of the Spirit. I'm grateful that we are walking this good path together. The way you tell the good story helps enrich all of our tellings of the good story, and I'm grateful for that. I simply want to say thank you for being in ministry with me and with the United Methodist Church in Michigan. I celebrate your rich history. I celebrate the moving forward of this ministry. Celebrate with gratitude that I get to be a small part of this history. So for all you have done, for all you will do, Miigwech.
And Jody, please come.
There's extra copies of the communion liturgy, and I'm sending our registration book around.
I too am honored to be here. It is so good to look around and see familiar faces. It has been good to be with you. I have been honored and, more importantly, blessed to have been your superintendent for the last 4 years as we walk through some of this process together. And the blessings that it has been, that not only are we all part of the kingdom of God together, but that kingdom includes justice, and it includes us working together to find ways to honor and bless the history that we have. And so it's been a delight, and I just wanted to be here to worship with you as you celebrated 190 years and more than that, of this being sacred space. Miigwech.
Join voices. We're going to open in a grandfather prayer, and then you'll be invited to lead us in song. Inside your Greensky Hill binder, and you may need to share with a neighbor, you'll find a copy of the grandfather prayer by Keshe Fast Moving Cloud. On the back of that page, you will find our closing hymn that we'll sing at the end of the service, Hymn of Promise. Please join me in praying together the grandfather prayer. Namada. Grandfather, look at our brokenness. We know that in all creation only the human family has strayed from the sacred way. We know that we are the ones who are divided, and we are the ones who must come back together to walk the sacred way. Grandfather, Sacred One, teach us love, compassion, and honor, that we may heal the earth and heal each other. As the women gather, I'm lighting our prayer candles in a similar way as Sema is offered to the earth and into the fire, where the smoke lifts our prayers to Creator. These candles represent all of our prayers this morning. This weekend, since Friday night, as our drummers gathered, these young Anishinaabemowin, these young girls, we've witnessed the grandmothers teaching and welcoming the younger drummers into the circle, and it's been such a blessing.
Minokijap, good morning. Chimiguach, thank you for coming. We have 3 young girls here, 3 young Kways that are going to perform together a song that they learned. I think one of them has a shaker that they made, and is going to use that. It's a short, sweet song, and it is a song about celebrating water and honoring that water, respecting that water, and caring for that water.
A lot was happening. I'm not sure if you heard me share that those young Anishinaabe have been mentored all weekend. First, kind of spontaneously. The drum voices were singing and drumming, and the girls came to join. And then Shirley, one of our drummers, aligned them and stood beside them and showed them how to hit the beat, and all of them very quickly joined in, and I'm so thankful for. Robin did not identify herself. That's Robin Lees, who is not only our lay leader here at Greensky Hill, but she's been instrumental in ABAR, which Bishop instituted, an anti-bias, anti-racism team for the conference, and Robin represented the Indigenous people as much as any one human can represent any entire group of people, which we all know doesn't work quite like that. But those voices are also important, and we're very thankful for the ministry of that team who are guiding pastors like me. I'm in what's called a cross-cultural appointment. Nobody really used that term specifically when I was first assigned and then appointed 10 years ago. But I'm non-native, serving in a primarily native church. And Dennis Dominic, the chair of our council, who was part of the Pastor Parish Relations Committee when our previous district superintendent, Anita Hahn, introduced me to our church, shared with me this wonderful welcome that became a part of the model for why we are a radically welcoming community. And when I shared, I've heard stories like most white people about some native ancestry, but I've never really connected to the culture. I don't have any family lineage to share or identify with. Dennis said, we welcome everyone at Greensky Hill. And the tribes and the church have been so supportive and encouraging and also patient, as I've learned, and sometimes made mistakes. Kaitlin has been very instructive to me this weekend about remembering that I am a human being and I am still arriving. And she's going to elaborate on that in her talk in just a short while. And the importance of recognizing that sometimes in our connections we have growing to do toward a calling that Creator sets free, the name the First Nations version uses for Jesus. Creator Sets Free has called us to a life that Scott Harmon unknowingly cited, unknowingly in that we didn't rehearse what I was going to talk about this morning. And Scott quoted John 10:10. Most of us know a version, some English version, that sounds something like, I've come to give you life and life abundantly. And I love the First Nations version translation of that passage, and it's all that I'm going to focus on in a brief reflection this morning before we share communion together. The context is where we've been for the last several weeks as we've followed the United Methodist Discipleship Ministries series, and we've been in the parables, almost exclusively in the Gospel of Matthew. And we've been reminded as a body that parables are not allegories. We're not looking for which one of these characters represents God and so on. Parables are a really good joke that you suddenly realize you are the punchline. And Jesus is doing that again in John chapter 10. He's mostly addressing the separated ones, the folks we know as Pharisees. Think of the religious elite. Think of folks like Bishop David Allen Bard, who have not been awakened and are still in cahoots with the dominant power system. That's who Jesus was talking to, and he was talking about a good shepherd and a not-so-good shepherd. And at first, I'm sure they were saying, yes, what? And he got to this beautiful passage that I have seen lived out in every newscast I've tuned into for the past many years. And here's how it reads in the First Nations version. Thieves enter only to take away life, to steal what is not theirs, and to bring to ruin all they cannot have. I have come to give the good life, a life that overflows with beauty and harmony. And we've been talking for some time now about the connection between the grandfather teachings and the promise of Creator Sets Free to invite us into a different kind of kingdom. A kingdom that is not based on who has the most money or the most power. It's not based on which family you come from or what religion you identify with. It's a kingdom that is based on the kinship that Kaitlin Curtice writes about in her book, Living Resistance, that she shared with us in discussing the third realm of her book. This morning, she's going to take us into the fourth realm, the integral realm. I wish you would have picked a word that's easier to say, but the integral realm invites us into this life of beauty and harmony that Creator Sets Free, walks before us and invites us to walk alongside. And in the beautiful, almost brand new book, The Seven Generations and the Seven Grandfather Teachings, James Vakulik Kagabanaw, Kagagaba, writes and elaborates on what is richly focused in our articles of incorporation and our bylaws for the Greensky Hill Anishinaabe Conservancy. And it's this concept that in Anishinaabemowin is Minnow-Bemadzuen. Minnow-Bemadzuen. And it translates almost literally as the good life. And he writes this: our ancestors answered all of our questions in the language. They left us the word Minnow-Bemadzuen, the good life, a life of peace, a life of balance, a life of good health. The answer to my question, how can I live in a way that brings peace to my relatives, is to live well. And he breaks this word into different components as he does. If you haven't seen James Vakulik, I'll have the book available for you to peruse right after the service, and you can Google or YouTube James. His journey is amazing. He, in the darkest days of his life, he turned to the language and the stories to heal and recover. And he's been a teacher ever since. And he is so gifted in gently explaining the language and breaking down the words of the language so that they make sense to folks who are not first speakers. And he's also gives us a gracious reminder, as Kaitlin has all weekend, that we should feel no guilt when we don't know the language of our own people. Because whether you are from one of our indigenous tribes, whether federally recognized or not, or from some other indigenous culture, the dominant culture has always used the dominant religion and the taking away of language to control people. So no guilt, but it's such a wonderful journey to learn the language. James Kagagebaga, I'm sorry, I've worked on this all morning. Kagageba writes this about what it means to live Minnow. It's a big one, thank you. It's a tiny little book, but I lost my place. There we go. Thank you. He explains that almost 80% of Ojibwe or Potawatomi or Odawa words, or the various sayings of those tribal identities, the Anishinaabe people, are 80% of the words are verbs. And the 7 grandfather teachings are verbs. And in order to live this life, the good life, Minnow-Bemadzuen, the answer to how to do that is to walk with Creator Sets Free in the grandfather teachings. And our kids were learning yesterday at a ceremony at the fire the Ojibwe names for each of the grandfather teachings. In the interest of time and my ego, I'm not going to say them all right now. No, my ego has almost nothing to do with this. I really want to just remind you of these 7 teachings and how they lead us into a life of beauty and harmony that is so unlike the kingdom of thieves. And I don't need to elaborate on that kingdom, because you all, I could see you identifying. The part of that struck me most is not just the taking of things that don't belong to you, but the bitter heart of ruining everything that you can't have. And we're seeing that displayed in the power systems around us daily. And Creator Sets Free offers a different path. The grandfather teachings before European contact here guided folks on that path. Truth, humility, respect, love, bravery or courage, honesty, and wisdom. Some of the stories that I shared earlier, some of the names that I named that I will not call out again this morning, have modeled for us for almost 2 centuries how to walk this road. And we are so grateful for all that we acknowledged earlier and all of the people that we acknowledged earlier for being allies with Greensky Hill so that we can walk this road for another 7 generations. Amen.
Amen.
I'm going to pass around, actually I'm not. We're just going to sing the doxology, and Mark's going to go find the offering baskets. Look how quick Mark is. The round basket, these will be at the steps as you depart this morning after Kaitlin speaks. And if you are in a place this morning where you have resources that you can share, you are invited to share them. The round basket is for the ministry. All the things that we talked about, they all cost a lot of money. But no one person has to take care of that. Our online friends, so glad you're here with us. You can go to greenskyhill.org and use the donate button. Folks here, if you don't have something to put in the basket and you wish to offer a gift later, you can use the donate button at greenskyhill.org or mail your gift to the church. The little picnic basket is part of our tradition to weekly give to UMCOR, the United Methodist Committee on Relief. Not every congregation does it every week, but it's been one of our traditions for a long time. Folks bring their pocket change and whatever else they have, a little overflow for the week. Maybe they gave up a coffee or something for the week. And that all adds up. And this little congregation has given tens of thousands of dollars to UMCOR over the decades. And UMCOR is United Methodist Committee on Relief, and it's part of our connectional ministry to not just take care of the people that we see every week here at Greensky Hill, but our neighbors all over the world. So please give to both of those places if you are able. And a reminder that there are times when you're not in a place to share your resources, and you can depend on your sisters and brothers and kin to take care of that and feel no guilt about that. So let's sing. I'll invite you, if you're comfortable standing, you'll find the doxology in the front of your binder. And I'm going to stand over Sharon's shoulder. Oh, never mind. I'm going to borrow a book. I don't have it memorized. I'm almost another 10 years. Right? Thank you. Yeah. So just past the Native American celebration of communion, which we will enter into a moment, you'll find the doxology. If you're able to stand and sing, please do. And this is a familiar tune with phonetic Anishinaabemowin words. Mamuya wa madamaba, wenjeja wenda gozeyan, wayu semen megwe semen, kaya panizi ojecha. And you may be seated if you have a book to share, and there are extra copies on that chair of Native American celebration of Holy Communion. Bishop Bard will come and preside over communion with me, and the elements are being distributed at this time. I want to invite you to hold on to the bread and the grape until you're invited to partake together at toward the end of the ceremony. It's important to know that we practice open table communion. This is Christ's table, and all are welcome. Folks, for a whole variety of reasons, on some occasions don't feel comfortable or don't want to participate in communion at a particular time. If that's your situation, just put your hands like this, and you'll receive a blessing with your brothers and sisters, but you don't have to partake in communion. You don't feel any obligation to do that. Do feel welcome. Bishop Bard? Welcome, family. Welcome, relations. Welcome, all. The house of the Creator is our gathering place today. The feast has been prepared for us all. This may be your first time to share the Feast of Holy Communion. Welcome to the table that binds us all together. God, who walked with our ancestors, who walks among us now, and who will walk with our children's children for generations to come, we give you thanks for your presence. In the air that we breathe, in the sound of rustling leaves, and in the waving grass, we give you thanks for your presence.
In the sound of children's laughter, and in the songs of our elders,
we give you thanks for your presence.
Let us help each other stand and take off the robe of mourning. Lift up your broken hearts.
We lift them up to God.
Let us honor God.
It is right to honor God.
It is right to honor God and to give our thanks.
We give our thanks. We send to you, Creator God, our dreams, visions, and prayers. You may be seated if you wish. For our mission, let your Spirit move us to honor and respect one another, from the least to the greatest. May we treat everyone we encounter with dignity and love. May we affirm the image of the Creator within each one of us. May we help restore the image of the Creator on earth. May our words, thoughts, and actions nourish and sustain your creation. For the Church, may she lead and dance with honor. Let all who follow her steps and rhythm know and feel righteousness and strength. May her regalia exemplify purity and perfection. For the world, may the nations of the earth gather to listen to the heartbeat of God. May they sit in silence as the great peacemaker teaches and shows them how to walk upright. May the war clubs and instruments of destruction be transformed into life-giving means of grace. For the hearts of the people, created with your sacred fire burning within us, we confess that we struggle to live out our great potential. When we do harm to your creation, your creatures and fellow human beings, forgive us. When we fail to do all the good we can in all the places we can, forgive us. When we turn away from your love and grace, forgive us. Hear now the good news of Creator sets free, Jesus Christ. You are forgiven. I am forgiven. We are forgiven. Peace be with you.
And also with you.
I invite you to share the peace of Christ with your neighbor with a greeting as the elements are continued to distribute.
Glorified everlasting light who ends our mourning. Be glorified planter of righteousness whose hands have formed us with strength. Be glorified. All honor to the Son of God who brings good news to the poor. All honor to Jesus Christ, Creator sets free, who brings freedom to the oppressed and sight to the blind. All honor. All praise to the Holy Spirit who helps us in our weakness. All praise to the sacred Spirit who teaches us how to pray and intercedes on our behalf. All praise. Jesus Christ, Creator's Son, our brother and friend,
with honor and respect, we remember the great sacrifice of your life for us and for our people.
With awe and humility, we remember the miracle of your resurrection from death.
With faith, hope, and trust, we remember the promise you made to return and lead us home.
Creator God, Jesus, your Son, understood the importance of community and relationship. On the night he gave himself up for us, he gathered his disciples from many tribes and shared a meal with them in preparation for his death and resurrection. As he stood in the midst of them, he took bread, gave thanks to you, broke it, and gave it to his disciples and said, "Take, eat. This is my body which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." After the meal, he took the cup and gave thanks to you, gave it to his disciples and said, "Drink this, all of you. This is my blood of the new covenant, poured out for you and for many for the forgiveness of sins. Do this as often as you drink it, in remembrance of me."
As the grain was given to Creator God to all peoples of the world,
Jesus Christ was also given to nourish and sustain.
as the fruit of the vine was given by Creator God to all peoples of the world,
Jesus Christ was also given to bind us to God and one another.
as the women from many tribes knead, fold, and make the bread in holy stillness, so the women tended and cared for the broken body of Jesus Christ.
A sacrifice for us.
Spirit, help us now. Come and breathe into these gifts of bread and the fruit of the vine as we receive these gifts into our bodies. May our breath become the sweet breath of Christ. Rise up, nations of God.
Give God your praise.
Rise up, clans of nations.
Come together and give God your praise.
Rise up, bands of nations.
Lift up your hands and give God your praise. Friends, I invite you to take the bread and the fruit of the vine. As you do, may God's Spirit touch you deeply. May you know the freedom that comes from Creator Sets Free. As the rivers flow, let us hear his song. As the winds blow, let us hear his whispers. As the grasses sway, let us see them dance. As the eagle soars, calm our minds. Christ's love is always there. Open our arms to embrace his love. Let us embrace one another and share his message of love. We have taken Jesus into us. We now go out in the different directions to be the hands and feet of Jesus. We go out to correct what we did wrong, what others did wrong, and to sometimes take the blame for another's mistake as Jesus did for us. We go out to stand up for the powerless, the voiceless, and those invisible. Gracious God, let your mercy and grace fall on us and give us courage to follow in the footsteps of Jesus.
Creator God, as we walk from this place with renewed strength for the journey before us, let us follow the path of Jesus as the Spirit guides our steps. Help us to make wise choices in the days ahead, to serve those in need, and to remember our place in the circle of life. Remind us to listen to our elders, to teach our children the traditions of our people, to respect one another and all creation. As we wait for the day when we will be reunited with you and those who have gone before us, keep our hope alive and our footsteps on the path toward home.
When the time comes for us to depart from one another, remember Creator God was here before we came and will be here after we depart. Creator God came in with us and will stay with us when we depart. We are all connected to each other and to our Creator. All praise to Creator God.
Amen.
Amen.
If you'll find the words on the back of the Grandfather Prayer to Him of Promise, we'll sing that together, and then Kaitlin will come and share. Stand if you're comfortable.
In the bulb there is a flower, in the seed an apple tree, in cocoons a hidden promise, butterflies will soon be free. In the cold and snow of winter there's a spring that waits to be unrevealed until its season, something God alone can see. There's a song in every silence, seeking word and melody. There's a dawn in every darkness, bringing hope to you and me. From the past will come the future, what it holds a mystery, unrevealed until its season, something God alone can see. In our end is our beginning, in our time infinity. In our doubt there is believing, in our life eternity. In our death a resurrection, at the last a victory, unrevealed until its season, something God alone can see.
Kinfolk, I invite you to sit and get comfortable as Kaitlin Curtice takes us to realms beyond where we've ever been.
Whoa, that's a big promise.
Jeremy?
Bonjour. Kaitlin Curtice and Indigenous Potawatomi and Dow. Good morning, hello. My name is Kaitlin Curtice. I'm a citizen of the Potawatomi Nation from Shawnee, Oklahoma. And my people, originally coming from Indiana, were forcefully removed from Indiana, a group of Potawatomi, down into Kansas in a trek called the Trail of Death in 1838, and my ancestors ended up in Oklahoma. And so that's a little bit of my story and where I'm from, and it's always an honor to return to the Great Lakes anytime I can. So, Miigwech, thank you for having me here. Thank you for holding this space with me. We have been going through my book in many ways. I've been reading to you a lot, and I'll read to you some more. We're working through the realms of resistance. My book is called Living Resistance, and it's a book about how we resist the toxic status quo around us, how we resist things like hate and oppression and injustice and pain in our society and our world. And we do that through caring for ourselves, caring for each other, caring for Sigamakwe, Mother Earth. And so we've been going through these realms. I have these 4 realms of resistance. So my first talk was on the personal realm. That's our heart work, the season of winter. And then we went into spring. We talked about the communal realm. How do we hold kinship and solidarity with one another? And then we moved to the ancestral realm, which is where we think about our ancestors and we think about future generations. It's summer. And today we're at our heart center. We are in the integral realm. And it is the season of autumn, which is my personal favorite. It's the time where we harvest, where we integrate, where we bring everything back to the center, to our shkode, our fire. And we ask, what have we been learning? And what are we continuing to learn? That resistance is lifelong. I think that that's one of the most important lesson I can tell anyone is that the work we do is lifelong work, and we continue to do it until we pass on, and then we pass on all the things we've been doing to those who come after us. So as we've done in each of the sessions, I want to start with our safe space reflection. So get comfortable. If you haven't done this yet, I'll explain what we're doing. We're going to close our eyes, and we're going to picture a safe space. And this has been something really impactful for me, especially since COVID. When I'm worried, when I'm scared, when I can't sleep, I find a safe space in my mind. And it can be a real space. It can be a made-up space that you've never been to. It can be a space that exists in your dreams, your actual dreams. It can be anything you need it to be. So close your eyes and settle in. Take a deep breath. Begin building the space that brings you safety, that brings you joy, that brings you contentment and love. It can be anywhere. It can be anything. It can be a hammock with a cover over the top by a beach somewhere. It can be a little house in the woods. It can be a tent. It can be a castle. It can be a cave. It can be a home you've lived in before, or a home you hope for one day. Where's your safe space? Begin to build this room of self-love and care. What do you need in your safe space? I would definitely want a recliner, a reading chair, a warm fire on a chilly day, maybe. I'd want a book to read and a cup of coffee. What do you need? What do you need in this safe space? What makes you happy? Engage with the deepest parts of yourself. What do you feel? Do you feel love and contentment? Do you feel cared for? Do you feel your body relaxing? The knot in your stomach is going away a little. Your hunched shoulders are relaxing, and you are just held. And remember that in this space, you don't have to be doing anything, really. You can be taking a nap. You can be sitting and staring at the ocean, staring at the trees, staring at a wall and just reflecting. You're just holding gratitude in your heart. And all is well. When you need this place, return to it. And see what it teaches you. Do this practice every night before you go to bed, or in the morning when you wake up, or when you need it in the middle of the day, and see what it teaches you. I have a feeling it can heal the relationship to your child self because it's engaging your curiosity and your wonder. That's what it's done for me. When you're ready, open your eyes. Thank you. Throughout my childhood and adult life, I have found myself at times, especially out on walks, wondering how Creator or Great Mystery or the Sacred is doing. In a moment of what I can only describe as a protective empathy, I ask Creator, how are you doing, really? Because I cannot know what it's like to hold galaxies of grief and joy, passion and exhaustion. I cannot know what it's like to be aware of what goes on everywhere all the time. I cannot imagine what it might be like to be the essence of the beginning and constantly hold time, whatever time is. So I ask, how are you doing with all this? And I wait for answers in the wind, at the treetops when I look up. Asking God, Mamagosnan, or the divine how they are seems natural to me. And it simply makes me think about what prayer is. Merriam-Webster defines prayer as an address or petition to God or a God in word or thought. So in my Southern Baptist upbringing, prayer was not very expansive, though deep down I hoped it would be. Prayer was a list of sins I wrote in my journal every day, an exhaustive list of apologies for not doing enough, not being enough. Prayer felt like crawling on my knees to a God who stood towering over me with a look of disappointment, a militant type father who knew I could never be good enough but thought he'd try to love me anyway. This is not prayer. Embodying prayer as a practice, as a way home, leads us home. Rabbi Danya Ruttenberg writes that prayer isn't about the easy and sweet, but rather encompasses the anger and the frustration and the ambivalence. So it goes with prayer, an embodiment of everything we are, rejecting the boxes that are created from the toxic status quo of colonization, patriarchy, and hate. Instead, we breathe resistance in and out and realize it was prayer the whole time. So what does prayer mean to you? And it could have changed from yesterday. It can always change. Prayer is fluid. We were in the ancestral realm yesterday talking about liminality and fluidity. Prayer can change. It can shift and move, as we change, as we shift. So we are in this integral realm. And integration is such a beautiful idea. And so I just want to kind of bring everything together for us today. We're bringing these realms together. And if you think of that light, that essence at the center of who we are, our shkode, our fire, that is what makes you who you are today. That is your integration. That is your heart, your knowing, your sacred spirit. Autumn, like I said earlier, is my favorite season. My birthday is on the first day of fall, so maybe it's just there inside of me. It is a time when we gather everything to ourselves, where we are harvesting and we're also letting go. So this fourth realm of resistance is about gathering in everything that we are unlearning and learning, and it's also about letting go, surrendering, releasing, so that we can dream and pray and hope toward a better future. The little chapters within this last section of the book are about these things. They're about lifelong resistance, prayer, and dreaming, because I wanted to end my book that way. I wanted us to lean into that together. So I want to read to you a little bit from the book. This is on a chapter called Interspiritual Relationship as Resistance, which is so much of what we're practicing in these spaces, right? Is this relationship to the beings around us, to the earth. Because I am a faith leader, people obviously ask me about my faith and theology a lot. I've lately come to say that I live on the periphery of Christianity, meaning I exist on the edge of a faith that raised me, not necessarily because I want to, but because I am asking so many questions that I have essentially journeyed to the edge of myself. What happens at that edge, I don't know, and I have peace in not knowing, as uncomfortable as it makes others who don't want me there. In recognizing there is so much to learn, so much to decolonize and unlearn, I am holding space at the edge. I do not currently go to church. I feel no need to. What exists in me is a growing need to engage in conversations with other people of faith, to ask our questions together, to journey to our own edges and see what's there for us as human beings. But while I'm asking difficult questions of the faith that raised me, I'm recognizing that communities of faith are meant to hold one another up, to demand a better world, to embody radical resistance for each other. Valerie Kaur writes, every social justice movement in the United States has been infused with the energy of faith leaders who ignite our moral imagination and connect us with our ability to recreate the world around us. So again, we're thinking about dreaming. I want to remind you of this line which Jonathan brought up. I am a human being. I am always arriving. You are a human being. You are always arriving. That's the medicine that I offer in this book. It's medicine that I carry with myself every time I'm scared to make a mistake, every time I make one, every time I start dreaming. I have to remind myself, I am a human being. I'm always arriving. I lead a workshop on holding space in difficult times. And in this workshop, we focus on 3 areas: holding space for ourselves, holding space with Mother Earth, and holding space with other humans. So I want to do this with you today, share a little bit from this workshop, because I think that ties everything together, everything we've been talking about and embodying this weekend. I want to share a reading with you from my book, Native, which was my second book, and it's a lot about my journey as a Potawatomi woman, growing up in a colonized space of Christianity and my questions. I want to read you something from this. It's on a section of the book called Keeping Watch. And I just want you to think about this integration and this dance that we constantly do with our own humanity as I read. The day that Tahlequah's calf died, I had no idea. It wasn't like the foundations of the earth shook, telling me that a mother orca whale in Puget Sound was grieving. I saw it on the news a few days later, but once I knew, Tahlequah's presence wouldn't leave my mind. Through her grief, we are all trying to learn something. It had never been recorded that a whale had carried their deceased baby that long. For 17 lingering days, her pod alongside her, she wailed in the way that only an orca can. They were in communal mourning. And I couldn't help but ask if as humans, if we even know how to mourn anymore. A few months before this, I had started trauma therapy, and I was learning that often we don't know how to name things. Grief, trauma, joy, loneliness, community, anger, abandonment, mystery, misery, sacredness, self-care. We like to throw these words around for other people to use, but when they bubble up inside of us, we often don't know what to say or how to act on them or how to name them. I was watching an orca whale mourn more in 17 days than I had mourned anything in 20 years. Beyond that, my mourning and Tahlequah's mourning were connected. Humanity takes what it wants when it wants it. Dams and pollution are killing off salmon, endangering orca whale populations, endangering the water, the thing we call sacred, the thing we are tasked to protect. So as Tahlequah grieved, I couldn't help but ask how much of her grief resulted from humanity's mistakes, from greed, capitalism, lack of care, heartlessness. It is the lie since the beginning that we are made to be alone. We are not only made for community within our own species, we belong to all the creatures of the earth, our kin. So that's a story about integrating grief and all the emotions of being human into our life and how I did it through a moment. Close your eyes again. Connect with that child self in you. And we're just going to tell them 3 things. So I'll say each of these things and you just say it to yourself, to that child self in you. The first one, I love you. Speak that to your child self. I love you. Second one, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. And the third one, thank you for loving me. Thank you for loving me. Connecting to our child selves is difficult, it's painful, and it's really, really beautiful. So I encourage you that when you are going through something, sometimes it may be little you trying to get some attention, trying to say something, so don't be afraid to name that. You open your eyes when you're ready. Yeah, we're keeping track of time because I have a flight I have to Good catch, sadly. Connecting with your child's selves. If the sun is hurting your eyes, you can move back anywhere you need to, because I know it's bright, and I can see it on your lovely faces that some of you are struggling. So if you need to move, please grab your chair and move it back if you need to. If you're good in the sun, no worries. I believe that some of the greatest heroes of our day and the days that came before us are the ones who drew from that deep well of caring for themselves, of connecting to their child selves. They were doing that work of investing in those moments, and that teaches us to do the same. I shared something from Clarissa Pinkola Estes, who wrote Women Who Run with the Wolves. I have another quote of hers to share with you because I love her that much. She writes, "Today the old one inside you is collecting bones. What is she remaking? She is the soul self, the builder of the soul home." So as we pay attention to our child selves, we also recognize this beautiful elder, this being that's tending to our soul home as well. And I think that's a really beautiful image to hold inside of us. What is being built inside of you today? Pay attention to that. So that was holding space with ourselves, especially our child selves, as we're dreaming of a better world. Number 2, holding space with Mother Earth. I want to read to you from the book. My book, Native, is all about dreaming of a better world on the other side of this collapsing one. The Potawatomi flood story, like many stories, tells the tale of Creator flooding the earth and the animals and original man working to create one again. Our Potawatomi story features muskrat and turtle who make it possible to dream of a future world that can be created from dirt and shell. That's why we need those stories, especially when it's hard to dream for ourselves. We need stories from around the world to tell us that it's worth it to dream, even when it feels impossible to do so. Dreaming can be a very scary endeavor. Choosing that vision and refusing to let go can feel overwhelming. That is why we carry our dreams here in the integral realm, into the core of ourselves. We hold our dreams carefully, the personal dreams, the collective dreams, the ancestral dreams. Institutions may crumble along the way. White supremacy may shift and fall little by little, or sometimes may grow and metastasize. Still, we hold those dreams and vision to our chest, and we do not let go. As humans, we go about our life not always conscious of the land we exist on, the water we drink, the food we eat. Take a moment to think about what you had for breakfast, or the coffee and tea that you drank to wake up. Think about the origins of that food, the seeds where those coffee beans came from, or the fruit tree that grew to give us its bounty. We must hold space with Mother Earth. So the question is, can we learn what it means to be humble? To travel and journey this earth with love and kindness and kinship at the forefront of our experiences? Yes, we can. Even as adults, we can. But start small. Start with your curiosity. Start wherever you need to start. Let's see. Speak tenderly to your houseplants when you dust their leaves. Remind them that they are beautiful. Thank them. Grow flowers in the spring and honor the seeds as beings. When you fish, ask permission to be there and thank the fish that you catch. Watch the way your posture toward the earth changes as you begin to lean into this. Read Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer and learn how transformational it can be to engage in kinship. Honor Indigenous people's rights and ways of caring for the land. Learn about how colonization has hurt the land. Place your hand on the ground and tell Mother Earth you're sorry for the ways we've treated her, and then do it all over again. Find your own ways of doing it. That's the beautiful lesson. It's an invitation. It's generosity. It's a gift. Resistance against the status quo of conquest and hate and pillage means reconnecting our souls to the land that holds us. Remember, we are human beings, always arriving on this planet, always arriving to new ideas and experiences, new moments to be present, to hope, to dream, and to integrate. So as we integrate these lessons, we're learning to care about the earth and ourselves. How do we keep caring about one another? This is, again, that power of storytelling, right? We cannot deny how important storytelling is and hearing each other's stories and sharing each other's stories. But it can be hard. Leaning into the power of story, it takes time to hold that space and to be present. I want to read to you something that I wrote when I was trying to write this book. It was a struggle at times. And I decided to put an essay I wrote about my struggles into the book because I wanted to make it clear that this is not always easy. And caring for each other means showing up to the really hard moments as well. It is January 14th, 2022. I am in my bedroom, the door is shut, afternoon sunlight is streaming through the windows, dogs are barking in the background. The kids are at home doing school virtually, winter jazz music is playing from a YouTube channel on my laptop, and I should be working on a book about everyday resistance, but I can't. I can't write because the cobwebs that have covered every corner of my mind are difficult to clear out. We've been in a global pandemic for over 2 years as of this writing, and it is taking its toll on us still. The hardest part is that I can do nothing about it. I can't do anything about the dogs barking or the kids in virtual school or the cobwebs. I am tired. And though I don't feel I've run out of words, I struggle with how to organize them once they come out of my head and heart and onto the page. It's like I'm trapped in a stream of consciousness that I deeply need to sort through and nothing more. And I sit here on the verge of tears, feeling like I have no idea what resistance even is right now. So I step back a moment and consider everything I've learned about difficult seasons and grief. We don't always know when grief will come. We cannot control the seasons. We must always trust our bodies to tell us the truth. We remember that grief takes time. We take a few deep breaths. We try again. So pause, breathe, let's begin again. Resistance is surprisingly flexible. Sometimes when I feel like I can't, I need to rest. And sometimes when I feel like I can't, I need to write. And both can be true at the same time. Resistance, much like happiness or joy, isn't about having prerequisites. Living resistance doesn't always mean that I have both feet on the ground, but it does mean that I am grounded nonetheless. So as we share our stories and our struggles with one another, we're leaning into the power of resistance, of care. I have so much hope. Thinking about how to hold space with others, I have so much hope when I look at people who are just speaking the truth, even when it's hard. Friends of all religions, all races, all cultures, naming injustice and practicing solidarity and remembering that this work is not a fad. This work is lifelong. It's meant to last. It takes time and energy to keep it going. It's important on this lifelong journey of resistance that we remember that we will make mistakes in relationship with one another. We will forget that we belong to each other. Then we'll remember again. We'll light a fire together. We'll tell stories together. Holding space with each other is difficult. It makes the whole journey essential, though. When we lean into the power of story, we take the time to hold that space and to dream of a better world together. So our stories, our connection to the earth, the ways we learn to embody resistance, it's all leading us toward wholeness. Cole Arthur Riley is an author, has a beautiful book, and she writes, "We hold our dignity. We hold Mother Earth's dignity. We hold each other's dignity." So one of the most important lessons from living resistance is that we recognize this lifelong journey. An important part of that lifelong work of resistance is to understand what we are responsible for and what we are not responsible for. We cannot take on every single thing all the time. It takes courage to stop and ask what work is mine to do, what healing is mine to embody along the way. We have to have the courage to say no to what isn't ours so we can say yes to everything that is ours without fear. I want to read you one last thing. This is the final resistance commitment from the book as we are sent off into our regular everyday lives, which is where resistance happens the most. I wrote these resistance commitments as ways to practice some of the things I'm writing about, or ways to embody them. And I want to just read this very last one that's just a long list of things for us to embody. How do we resist? We resist by breathing, by gardening, by telling the truth, by reading banned books, by singing love songs, by grieving, by trying again, by not giving up on ourselves, by challenging what we think we know, by knowing that love is always there, by trusting future generations, by drawing pictures, by fighting ableism, by petting dogs, by telling your body they matter, by sending flowers to a tired friend, by reaching out when you might need flowers, by dreaming of an anti-racist world, by meditating when things get hard, by being patient with yourself, by setting healthy boundaries, by believing in solidarity, by refusing to other your kin, by writing in that journal, by saying hello to Mother Earth every day, by listening to music, by writing music, by deconstructing what you once knew, by asking what it all means, by admitting we know nothing, by honoring humility, by honoring the children, by becoming like children, by dancing in a snowstorm, by holding someone's hand, by holding your own hand, by breathing deep again, by saying yes to all the magic that is, by saying no to the status quo of harm, by honoring whatever realm you are in, by honoring all the spaces in between, by honoring this moment, this time, this embodiment. This is living resistance.
We have food, and we would love for you to stay and eat. Kaitlin and Kathy and I will not be able to stay. She has the 1:37 flight out of Traverse City. So we're going to walk up the path and get in the car and say Bamapi for now. I want, as you go, want you to please remember that you are every bit an integral part of the work and the priorities and the calling of Greensky Hill, as Bishop Bard and Jody Flessner and Pastor Jonathan and Pastor Sarah and Robin Lees, all these upfront people that you see. We are just working alongside with you, walking alongside with you to accomplish something far bigger than any of us. And we're so appreciative of you. You are valued. And you are, will you say this with me? Let's see if we can get this right. Caitlin's been teaching us all weekend. I am a human. I am always arriving. Go in peace to walk the good road with Creator sets free, who called us to a life of beauty and harmony, who called us to resist the thieves in all of their expressions, and love our neighbor as we love ourselves, together loving our Creator. Amen.
Amen. Will somebody put out the fire and dispose all this stuff up? And don't forget the offering, everyone.
Thank you so much.